our guest speaker. So in general, I want to say welcome to the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living, to our virtual audience in Zoom land, on Facebook, or on our YouTube channel. It is amazing, the technology creating a reach beyond the physical presence in the sanctuary. So if you're viewing on Facebook or YouTube, please drop a note in the comments and let us know where you are viewing from. So as we continue to expand our reach, one of the amazing things is we get to share this platform with lovely guests. And we have the distinct honor this morning to welcome Mitch Austin, a seasoned practitioner and a ministerial intern. He was raised in the science of mind philosophy, one of those rare birds that grew up in the teaching. Like, I think the statistic is like 10% of the movement is actually grew up in science of mind philosophy. He's been a licensed practitioner since 2012. Mitch has been speaking at spiritual centers since 2016, when he was, what, maybe 10 years old? No. He currently is studying through the Emerson Theological Institute and is on track to get his ministerial certificate this October, which is just around the corner. Yay. So recently, Mitch formed Speak, Teach, Inspire, LLC, which it includes spiritual counseling, the Rise and Speak Academy, and other self-improvement classes such as Taming Your Inner Critic, Empowered Communication for Spiritual People, and I love this one, Eat, Pray, Live. Mitch is a member of the Amani Center for Ministerial Counsel and a member of the affiliated New Thought Network, and is starting a weekly show, the New Thought Media Network, in July last month, called Change Your Story, Change Your Life. Mitch's calling is to help others live a more authentic, healthy, and spiritually aligned life. So welcome, Mitch. We're so glad to have you here this morning with us.
Thank you. Well, good morning. So glad you made it as I do this set change here real quick. I'm one of those people that takes up a lot of space. Anybody know those people? I'm one of those people. So turn to somebody and say, glad you came today. Glad you're here. We couldn't have church online. Tweet somebody, say hello, say glad you're here today. So it is so good to be here. Some of you know this, some of you don't, but this is my hometown. And I have waited 10 years to come here and speak right here. And today's the day. So it makes it a wonderful, wonderful day. You know, everyone said, oh, I like your suit. And somebody noticed that I lost weight. And this suit actually is a demonstration. See, about 1.5 years ago, I had an illness nobody could diagnose. I had brain fog, the muscles in my legs would twitch uncontrollably. I couldn't walk but 30 feet and I was out of breath. I couldn't even cook. I would leave the flame on. And I didn't know what was going on. They were running test after test after test. And all they could find out is that my inflammation markers were through the roof. Nobody could tell me anything. And I thought, is this the end? Is this it? Do I need to go on disability? I mean, am I have to quit my job? Am I going to stay on the planet? Nobody could tell me. But in this teaching, I was taught something very important. There's a power for good and you can use it. And I thought, this is either true or it isn't true. And I said, well, God, it's me and you. We're going to figure it out. And I made a decision that I was going to heal this even if I didn't know how. And I was going to start right where I was at and did whatever I could. I quit the sugar. You know how many times we say we can't quit sugar? I got serious and I quit the sugar. And I walked the 20 feet and then I do it again the next day and the next day. And then I reached out to friends and I prayed. And you know the book that just comes across your path? Yeah, I learned about intermittent fasting, which was what turned the corner on my health journey. I was so committed, I went to an energy healer. She said, how serious are you about, getting healthy, about fixing this? I said, look, if you told me to eat long grass, I'd go out and do it right now. That's where I was at. And when we get that kind of serious, that kind of decision, that moves providence, you and spirit. And the first time I wore this suit was December of 2022. And at that point, I had lost 40 pounds. I had just had a CT and I said, what about my fatty liver? They said, you don't have no fatty liver, gone. Blood pressure healed, brain fog gone. I'm a size 34. I haven't been at 34 since I was 34. And here's the thing. My mind is sharper, my energy is better than before I got sick. That thing that came to destroy me actually came to push me to higher ground. We hear all the time in this teaching, life is not happening to us, it's happening for us. We got to hear the call. Make the decision and partner with this power for good. Yes? Yes. Well, this is the demonstration, so there you go. This is not the talk. But I was called to share this with you today. And if you want to learn more, my Eat, Pray, Live program, I teach a little more about this. So the genesis of today's talk happened about 10 years ago. I was called to take this class called Metaphysical Bible. Now, at the time, I didn't have a good relationship with the Bible. Anyone ever been beat up with the Bible? Yeah. As part of the LGBT community, we got beat up a lot with it, but I wanted to heal that relationship. I was hearing that there was spiritual food in this book that I didn't know about. So I took the class and I learned this about something called parables. And parables are metaphysical teaching stories. They have spiritual principles and laws in them. I had no idea. And these parables were blowing my mind. And this one parable got a hold of me. I was so excited, and I thought, someday I'm going to do a talk on it. I didn't even know I was going to do talks, but I just knew I was going to talk about this parable, and today's the day. You're going to get to hear that parable. Yes? So it's been crazy on the planet the past 3 years. Doesn't it feel like dog years these past 3 years? Yes. Things coming out of the shadows, so much change, things that we never thought would change, like Roe versus Wade. Feels like we're in this constant washing machine of change. Who's got change exhaustion? Anybody? Yeah. Who's ready for a little more peace, a little more serenity? Yes? Good, because the title of today's talk is Get Out of the Way. Heaven is here. Heaven is here right now, and it's only a thought away. Because here's the truth. When we get past the anxiety, what's left? Peace. When we move past the fear, what's left? Love. When we move past lack thinking, we can see the abundance all around us. And it's just a thought away. But it's so easy to get pulled out of our peace, out of our serenity, isn't it? I mean, you're driving down the freeway, you go to merge onto the freeway, someone cuts you off and gives you half a peace sign. For me, it's grocery store lines. I'm following the rules. I'm in the 15-item aisle, but you got 18 because I counted every one of them. And I'm losing my mind. Or sometimes it's you didn't get invited to the wedding that you thought you were going to attend. Or maybe your friend didn't call you on your birthday. Right? These things can take us out of our heaven pretty quickly. So there's 3 things we're going to focus on today as we move through today's talk. And the first one is to follow our guidance. We have this guidance system that's always wanted to connect with us and bring us to our next good. You ever get that still, small, quiet voice come in and you ignore it and it was right? Yeah. I remember one day I was walking out the door and I heard this little voice said, take your checkbook. I never take my checkbook to work, right? And we always argue with it, don't we? Like, who are we arguing with? But I took it. I said, well, there must be a reason. That day, they were selling crab feed tickets. Now, I had wanted tickets to this crab feed for 3 months, and they were only taking checks, and that day they sold out. See, Spirit even hears the small meditation of our hearts. The second thing we're going to focus on is worthiness. Our worthiness for a good even beyond what we can imagine. Taking the ceiling off of our good. Do you know we actually have a thermostat for only so much bad that we'll take and only so much good? And that ceiling has to do with our worthiness, and we're going to unpack that. And then the third thing, the most important thing we're going to do is we're going to manage what's in our consciousness that I call a cup, right? There's volume to our consciousness. What do we got in there? What are we allowing to be in there that's keeping us from our experience of heaven? So you want to know what that parable was? The prodigal son. Anybody? Prodigal son people? Yes? Okay. It's a prodigal son, and with your permission, I'm going to tell it Mitch style, or without, because that's how it's going to go. And if you've heard this story, I'm going to invite you to hear it again with a beginner's mind, right? Because we're all like streams, and streams are ever changing. You're different. You can't step into the same stream twice. And there's a twist at the end. If you know the story, there's a twist at the end that I give that you may not have heard before. And if you don't have a relationship with the Bible, even me saying the word gives you like this kind of feeling. I want you to just relax for a second and open up a corner of your mind to the possibility that this has spiritual food on a level that you could never even imagine. You know, one of my favorite authors, Rob Bell, he wrote the book, Everything is Spiritual, and he started out in the traditional Christian community. And he wrote this book, and he says, you know, so many religions say that the Bible is a handbook to get to the hereafter heaven. But he says, really, it's a handbook to bring heaven on earth. And it is. And we're going to unpack that through this story. Now, I love parables because we're each character in the story, right? And this story has three main characters. The forgiving father. Sometimes we're the bigger person. Sometimes we just let things go. And metaphysically speaking, the Father represents spirit, the divine, God. There's also the prodigal son. You know, the person that doesn't follow the rules. We got any rule breakers in the room? I know, right here, rule breaker right here. The one that did it differently, right? Sometimes we're that person, and metaphysically speaking, that's the idealistic mind. That's seeing something different than everybody else is looking at. And then there's the good son, the rule follower. Okay, rule followers, you can raise your hand now. Yeah, see, I knew you're rule followers because you did it. You do everything right. You do what's expected. You're the one that kind of shows up and everyone can rely on, right? So that represents metaphysically the pragmatic mind, right? So we have all three elements. Now there is a pig, a goat, and a cow. You don't have to be any of those. So the story starts off, there was a man who had two sons. And the youngest son comes to him and says, look, Dad, I don't want to wait for you to die. I want my inheritance now. I got plans. I want to make my way in the world. So the father says, okay, here you go. We got any parents in the room? What would you say? Well, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to invest it? Are you sure this is a good idea? See, the father didn't say that. Spirit doesn't say that. Spirit just says, yes, my beloved, here you go. So the younger son at that time got 1/3. So he got 1/3 of his father's properties, got all the cash, and he goes out to he leaves the father's house. Now, father represents spirit and house represents consciousness. So he leaves the spirit, the consciousness of spirit, and he goes to a distant country where customs are different, the thinking is different, the belief system different, and we'll call that thinking, that distant country, the thinking of the world, right? You gotta earn it, gotta work hard, everybody for themselves. He goes out to that world with, you know, he's young, he's got a pocket full of money, hits the club, spends it on wine, women, and song, and then he's broke. And not only is he broke, there's a famine in the country. There's no soup kitchens. There's no handouts. And you know, he could only find one job, and that was feeding pigs. And remember, he's a Jew, feeding pigs. That was the lowliest job there was. And there he is, throwing out the hard carob seeds, and he's so hungry, and he thinks, man, I'm so hungry, I'd even eat that. Can you imagine pouring out your cat food and saying, I'd even eat that? And then he starts beating himself up, the pity party. Oh, I really blew it. What was I thinking? Right? All that self-judgment. But then the Bible says something very important. It says he comes back to himself, back to that higher consciousness. And he has a thought. The Bible doesn't say this, but it's from out of the blue. You ever wonder where the blue is? It's like this placeholder for God. And he thinks, I blew the sonship, but what if I could be a servant in my Father's house? Servants, they eat good. They got bread. They got wine. And then he starts rehearsing his talk, what he would say. You ever do that? The apology. I'm going to tell my father I don't deserve the sonship, and I'm sorry, like he's planning it all out. And then he does something that is so powerful. We wouldn't have this story. It wouldn't be called the crowning jewel of the Bible. Ernest Holmes called it the greatest story ever told. It wouldn't be this if he didn't do this one thing. He begins the walk back to his Father's house, back to spirit consciousness. And that's hard to do after you messed up, yes? Right? It's hard to make an amends when you've done something wrong, or an apology, right? Or maybe you quit a job too soon and you really wanted to go back, or maybe you ended a relationship but that you really think you should have kept, right? It's hard to make that walk back. I mean, I'm sure you wanted to turn around, distant country, long walk, and sometimes we talk ourselves out of it, right? We decide we're going to do something. Anybody, and a few days later, you're like, oh, I don't think it's going to work, right? We talk ourselves out of it. That guidance, that talk. But he kept going, and he didn't even get to the Father's house, and the Father sees him in the distance and runs out to him and throws his arms around him and kisses him and hugs him. See, Spirit sees us, just even our intention, our step. Spirit runs out to us to meet us. We take one step, and Spirit takes three. I call it the spiritual cha-cha. And so he's hugging his son, and the son's like, Father, I'm so sorry, I blew it. And the father's like, get the robe, get the sandals, my son has returned. And then he's like, if I could just be a servant in your house, get the ring. See, the father isn't hearing that. How many times do we beat ourselves up, shame ourselves? Spirit's not impressed. Nobody's impressed. Stop doing that. Now, the prodigal could have thrown off the robe. No, not me. Take these shoes, take this understanding, take the ring. You know what the ring represented? Anyway, it had the family emblem on it. And you could go into the marketplace and press it in wax and buy a coat. It was the unlimited credit card. And he just blew 1/3 of the inheritance. See, always saying yes. Spirit is always seeing you in your perfection and your worthiness, no matter what you did before, no matter if the business failed, still worthy of abundance and dreams and success. No matter if you had 3 divorces, still worthy of love. No matter if you ate that cake this morning, still worthy of health, right? Always worthy. So there they are. The father says, kill the fatted calf. We're going to have a party. And they go up to the house. And the good son's slaving away in the field. And he hears this ruckus up at the house. And he decides to go up there. And he stops the servant and says, what's going on? And the servant says, oh, it's a glorious day. Your brother has returned. Your father's killing the fatted calf. We're going to have a celebration. Join us. And the good son says, no, I'm not joining you. And then the Father comes out and pleads with him. The Father, Spirit, comes to us in those times when we're pulling away and says, Son, it is a glorious day. Your brother was lost and now he's found. Celebrate with us. And the good son says, really? Really? I'm not going to celebrate with you. He took 1/3 of your property and he spent it on prostitutes and booze. I get up early every day. I do everything you say. You won't even give me as much as a small goat for me and my friends. And you kill the fatted calf for him? I'm not going to celebrate with you. And then the father says, Son, I am always with you. And all that I have, remember, he has 2/3. All that I have is yours. Now consider this. The prodigal takes the 1/3, squanders it, comes back, has an adventure, but he comes back open, humble, receptive of any small good. But now you got the good son sitting there with a cup full of righteousness and judgment and anger, and he can't let a drop of his good in. Who squandered more? See, sometimes we think that this story is about the prodigal screwing up and then being forgiven, and it is. But it's also about the good son who's missing it. You ever know somebody who's got everything, but they can't let any bit of that good in? They're always complaining. Anybody know that person? Yeah, they might be stuck in the good son syndrome, right? He's let his consciousness be filled with something that takes him out of his good. So the first part of this story as we unpack it is to follow our guidance, to follow our direction. Because when we do, it gets better, it gets stronger, and it brings us to higher ground. I had an experience of this. I was working for a city, and I had this great little office, and I loved my staff. I had a koi pond outside and a peace pole. It was beautiful. And it's so quiet, and I'm sitting there, and I hear, "Quit your job." And I went, "What? I can't do that." So I didn't. And then 2 weeks later, I hear again, "Quit your job." I'm like, uh-oh. Now, I had learned enough to know what Oprah says is true, that spirit will throw pebbles at the window, and if you don't listen, you get a brick. Anybody get the brick? And so I didn't want the brick. I didn't want the brick. So I went to my girlfriend at the time. I said, "We know who our source is, right? Yeah, I need to quit my job." And I thought it wouldn't be a problem. I had a really great resume. I quit my job, but I wasn't getting any jobs. But a friend of mine comes to my doorstep, literally, with a job application and says, "You know, I work at a group home for boys, and I think you'd be really good with them. Here's an application, you should apply." Now, I'm looking at it with my pragmatic mind, going, well, this won't pay the bills. Don't we do that? But I was awake enough to know that this was not an accident. So I applied. I got the job, and there I am, first day, back of the van, in the corner, listening to rap music, going, "God, please tell me it doesn't end here." Now, what I didn't know is this little organization that was healing boys' lives was up against a big challenge. They had to relicense themselves. They had to change all the rules and everything that they were doing. They didn't know strategic plan, KPIs, best management practice. And then they saw my resume and they're like, so 3 months later, they promoted me to their first ever HR director and corporate compliance director. And I helped save this little organization. And this little organization is helping save me because I was able to save enough money to leave my job in May and start my business. No accidents. So what would have happened if I wouldn't have followed my guidance? What would have happened to the prodigal if he wouldn't have followed his guidance? See, it's always there. But we got to take the journey, even if it doesn't make sense sometimes. Yes? Second thing is worthiness. Oh, worthiness. Now, the prodigal didn't think he was worthy of the sonship, but he did find something that he could put his mind and attention on that he was worthy for, and he began the journey. Spirit amplifies that energy. That's where his mind and his consciousness was, right? He could have taken off the robe, could have thrown down the ring, and he didn't do that. But in our own minds, sometimes we get this dialogue going. Who am I to be successful? Who am I to start a business? Who am I to write a book? Who am I? Fill in the blank, right? Or we get caught in the twos. I'm too old, or I don't have a degree, or I'm too young, or I'm not well enough, right? All of this mind chatter, talking us out, that's that inner critic that's trying to take us out of our heaven, out of our good, keep us from starting the journey. Anybody know that inner critic? Well, we're going to talk about it today, and I hate to tell you, there's 7 types of inner critic. I know one's bad enough. And we're going to take a little test so you get to figure out which ones are your top ones today, and it's going to be about an hour and a half for Love Operating. I hope you can join us. Don't let your inner critic talk you out of coming to the workshop. But here's the thing. Everybody here is worthy of the kingdom. And I'm going to tell you why. Everything was a thought before it was a thing. We know this, yes? Who thought of you? Who thought of Candy? Who thought of Ben? Who thought of Robert? Who thought of Irene? The Most High Spirit, it's got all the power, all the intelligence, all the love, and it said, the world needs a Reverend Robert. Completely and totally. Let's do a worthiness test right now. Everybody take a deep breath in. Let it out. Good, you all passed. Breathing, worthy. That's it. Last thing in is let's remember what's in our cup. Let's mind what we're allowing to be in our consciousness, right? That real estate. Is it really worth taking up the real estate to get upset about? You know, I had a bump in the road with my hotel yesterday. They had booked me 2 rooms. And then they told me they couldn't give me a refund, right? And I was really tempted to get pulled out of my heaven. And I thought, you know what? I don't care. Charge me for both rooms. Because nobody's going to steal my joy. I am speaking here at CSL Monterey. I'm going to SOAR conference I've been wanting to go to forever in my hometown. Nothing is going to steal my joy. And I stayed in my peace and I had the best drive up. It was wonderful. See, we can do this work. And we shouldn't let the good son syndrome let it steal our joy. You know that righteousness that happens? Right? That neighbor left his garbage cans out again. I always pull mine in on time. We do that. And we're losing a little bit of peace. Here, let's do a little good son survey. Everybody just take a deep breath. Settle into your body. I just want you to pay attention as I make these statements. If there's a little pull out of your heaven, a little body reaction as I say these things. How do you feel about unvaccinated people? Little something? Maybe, maybe not. You're walking down the street and somebody walks by you with a MAGA hat on. Little something? Maybe a Biden hat. Little something? Or how about this? You meet your kid's fiance and they announce that their pronouns are they and them. I know you're worried about how you're going to use that in a sentence. I understand. Or you go to an event and you see 2 men holding hands and one kisses the other on the cheek. A little something? Maybe, maybe not. And you can open your eyes. And if you felt a pull around any of those statements or any other moments where you're starting to judge someone, you are allowing yourself to be pulled out of your state of heaven. So let us remember to follow our guidance. If it's out of the blue, it's for you. Because when you follow it and you do it, your faith muscles grow. And you hear it clearer and clearer and clearer. And let's be honest, you ever talk to somebody, they didn't listen to you? What do you do? You just stop talking, right? You just tune out. So let's follow our guidance. And secondly, let's remember our worthiness. We were a good idea in the mind of good, in the mind of God. Breathing, worthy. Don't make it any more complex than that. No matter what you've done in the past, God's not holding it against you. Spirit's not holding it against you. And you shouldn't either. And let's mind our consciousness. What are we allowing the small little bits of judgment to eat away at our peace, our serenity, our happiness? For what? We could just be in our joy, even if we're getting charged double for a hotel room. We could just be in our joy. Spend the money that way. Because here's what I know. Spirit is always with you, and all that it has is yours. Blessed be. Let's take this message into prayer. So as I go within, I am reminded that there's only one one presence, one power, one being, one essence, by whatever name you use. God, Allah, Elohim, the stuff, big guy in the sky. And that this presence is in all places and spaces. There's no spot it is not. And it is always giving to itself, as itself, through itself, and all creation. The kingdom, whatever is needed to its beloved, to its creation. All the money, all the help, all the resources, all the guidance, all the direction, all the up-leveling, all the support, all the healing, no matter the diagnosis, no matter the state of your life or your mind or your body, spirit is in it all, bringing us to higher ground. And I rejoice in this knowing that there is a power for good and we can use it, and it is always with us, for us, showing us the way. I rest in this high knowing, I lean into it, I let go and I let good. And together we say, and so it is. Gotta put things back. We'll follow a part of the
Bravo, bravo. I'm so inspired and enthralled, Mitch. I mean, was that a great talk or what? So one of the things that, we're famous for are affirmations. So my question is, Amber, do we have the affirmation on a slide? Because it's a little long. But after that talk, I think we should say the affirmation together. Today, I empty my mind of any judgment, fear, or negative self-talk so that I may experience the joy, the peace, the abundance, and the well-being that is in me and all around me. Amen. So I think we need to take that affirmation into our heart, and this week, say it every morning to remind you of the perfection of spirit that indwells you, that never leaves you. And that talk is my inspiration to say it out loud. So thank you, Mitch. What a blessing. So at this time, one of the high spiritual practices that's one of my favorites, because I gather evidence every single day on the abundance and the law of circulation, that I am so blessed in so many ways. And one of the high spiritual ways of practicing our faith is to give to where we are spiritually nourished. This community has sustained me, supported me, and has never left my heart because this teaching is transformative. So I would invite you all to say with me our abundance statement. I recognize the presence of God within as a source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. So I would invite you all in our virtual community and in person here to give from your heart with your dollars to support this teaching and this movement and your spiritual home, because we have bills and we have a salary to pay for our beloved spiritual leader, Reverend Robert. And the practical application of giving from where you're spiritually nourished returns to you, blessing you in many ways, seen and unseen, unexpected and expected. As you know, my husband received a check for $4,000 out of the blue. A blessing, because he is a loving, giving, supportive person that helped another, and a person recognized that and gave back to him. So I would invite you as a spiritual community to practice that faith muscle and practice the law of circulation. You can certainly give through writing a check, placing it in the donation box in the sanctuary on the glass table. You can mail in your checks to 400 West Franklin Street, where our offices will record it and give you a lovely accounting of your support at the end of the year. You can also text to give, which is a really cool high-tech way. Text to give phone numbers on the screen. And of course, you can always go to our website, montereycsl.org, and click on the donate button. All forms and all ways of giving are appreciated, including not only your money, but your time and your talent. We're always looking for volunteers to help. So thank you, Ben, for candle lighting this morning. That was a beautiful blessing. Thank you, Ms. Amber and Irene, for running the soundboard, the slideshow, for Richard being at the entrance, guarding the silence while we did our silent meditation, and allowing people to wait in the back before entering. So there, and also for the beautiful flowers from Bobby Hall's garden that are magnificent. For Amy getting here early and putting the coffee on, and for those that brought goodies to share, and for Mitch for the most exciting workshop coming up. But we are blessed, prospered, and expanded in so many ways. It's our job to just wake up and notice them and appreciate them. And I still keep an evidence notebook in my purse. Every blessing I write down, because it increases my expectancy and my faith muscle, and I start to see more blessings because they show up every day. So with that, sticking with the agenda, I think we have community event announcements. Mitch's workshop will start probably about 15 minutes after service ends, around 11:45. So grab some coffee, get a seat. He will be doing a 90-minute Taming Your Inner Critic. So we're going to learn all about those 7 monsters that live in us and send them to their room and get them out of our consciousness. So Taming Your Inner Critic, donations are accepted. It's a love offering, $50 value, but it may even be worth more than that to you. So feel free to participate in that. We vision twice a week, Saturday mornings on Zoom at 10:30, and we use the Sunday Zoom address. We vision for this community. We've been doing it every Saturday for over 3 years. It is a spiritual practice that not only supports the center in their expansion, but I believe everybody that shows up absolutely is blessed and enriched. So consider joining us. Sunday morning at 10 a.m., we have a visioning session for each person, for yourself, led by our practitioner emerita, Connie Ziegenbein. August 8th, which is 2 days away, Tuesday evening, SOAR, our summer conference begins. 3 days of inspiring messages, concurrent workshops, walking the grounds of our beloved Asilomar, perhaps sitting in the chapel where Ernest Holmes delivered his Sermon by the Sea. I know that for me personally, Asilomar is holy ground. It's like coming home, because for so many years, our organization worldwide met there every summer. Now we travel and experience many other locations, but this summer it is back at Asilomar. So there are day passes for locals. If you haven't registered and want to like to even drop in for a day, you can certainly go online and register with a day pass. Let's see what else is available. Oh, and Reverend Robert's birthday's coming up on the 13th. We'll do something special for that. And of course, on the third Sunday of the month, August 20th, I will be doing my monthly soul collage workshop. If you're curious what that is, just drop in. It's from 12 to 2 after Sunday service. Have I missed anything? All right. So I want to say goodbye to our Facebook, YouTube audience, but not our Zoom folks. Hang in there. Thanks for returning and committing to being a part of our church family by listening to the inspiring talks. And if you want to hear it again, you can always go onto our Facebook page or YouTube and re-listen to it and get re-inspired. So isn't that great about technology? That we have now have the bandwidth to do this kind of broadcasting with state-of-the-art new cameras and equipment, and that we're digitally supported with all this high-tech stuff. It's amazing. Next week's message, percolating your passion with purpose. So show up next Sunday for Reverend Robert's talk. And remember, as you leave Facebook, if you're on Facebook, to like us and comment. Share the message with friends and family or anyone that you feel could be blessed by hearing the talk. Because I know that this teaching expands out and about in the community, in the world, to make the world a better place. And it's definitely exciting to be on the planet at this time. So bye-bye, virtual community.